Good morning. Early risers. What is wrong with you people? Yeah, I know when they told me the panel was going to be at 9, I said, really? You have panels at 9? Crazy. Well, good morning. We have one more panelist who was stuck in traffic and is in the building but hasn't made it up here yet. So
this is not easy to find if you don't know where the 400.
Yeah, because why, you know,
why make it easy?
The 400 room should be on the 4th floor, and the 500 rooms on the 5th floor, not down the other corridor. It's very confusing, especially at 9 in the morning. Anyway, good morning. My name's Craig Miller, and this is the Developing and Selling Animated TV Series panels. And we'll start out with introducing the panelists who I'm going to ask to say a little bit about themselves. And then we'll get into the topic. And why don't we start at the far end with Bob Roth.
Hi, I'm Bob Roth. I'm a writer, story editor, producer. Currently, I'm a staff writer at Nickelodeon on a show called Breadwinners. Me and my writing partner, Bill Motz, we are on that. Penguins of Madagascar, Monsters vs. Aliens, a bunch of other stuff.
And my name is Tatiana Krokar. I am a development manager at Cartoon Network and action comedy. We used to be action, and now everything is moving towards comedy at Cartoon Network, so now it's action comedy. And so, yeah, I can talk a bit about the subject from the like buyer's perspective or from the executive point of view. So, like, if you were to pitch a project, I'm the person you would talk to at the network. One of the people you would talk to at the network.
Andrew Robinson. I'm currently been writing on the new Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy series, a new show for Lego. I've written for Ultimate Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, 3 Transformers shows. I created a show for Hasbro called Kaijudo, Rise of the Duel Masters. And I'm a writer, often freelance, sometimes story editor, as are most animation writers.
Okay, and as I said, my name's Craig Miller. I'm a writer in animation. I've been writing for a very long time when I look at the people in this room. I started on The Real Ghostbusters. I've worked on everything from the Smurfs and Curious George to G.I. Joe and Beast Wars and all kinds of different shows. These days I do a lot of development, which is what we'll be talking about, both for companies here in the U.S. and I develop shows for China, Italy, France, Latin America, Australia, and all kinds of places.
But not Turkey.
Not directly for Turkey, although I've done shows that have ended up airing in Turkey. Every now and then someone says, oh, our show's now playing in Iran. And I'll go, this is why they hate us. Actually, not Iran, but we were in Iraq with Pocket Dragon Adventures. Sorry. Okay, just attack me with your bat. Yeah, that's not him. Anyway, so let's see what the topic description is. I should know because I wrote that, but I'm on 3 panels this weekend and I get confused as to which panel is which. So anyway, let me get a little sense of who you are. How many of you have worked in the animation industry?
Great.
Okay. And I'm guessing the rest of you want to work in the animation industry or are forced to come in with your friend who wants to work in the animation industry. Okay.
Go ahead, you can raise your hand. It's nothing to be ashamed of.
That's right. We all bear the stigma of working in the animation industry. Okay, well, let's talk about developing shows. That's the first part, is developing them. And I'm sorry, I'm really not quite awake.
You know, if you want, I can talk about what happens, I guess, if somebody comes in to pitch a show.
Well, I think I'm going to start with
Oh, sure.
what goes into a development. Then
Sure,
we'll get
sure, sure.
into the pitching end.
Sure, sure.
Okay, so a development is where you take an idea. In the industry, it's called IP, intellectual property. They got that term from the lawyers, but basically, it's an idea. And it could be a completely original idea. It could be a comic book. It could be a toy. I've developed several shows for companies where, here's this toy, do a show. Which is Transformers was, you know, I think it was originally, was certainly 4, maybe 6 robots in the toy line, and it's like, let's do a TV show, and you have to invent everything. What do you have to invent? What do you have to come up with when you develop a TV show? You've got an idea. What are the principal things you need in putting together that idea into a concrete form?
Well, a computer helps. Something to write on.
I think let's go a little more advanced.
From a writer's perspective, all right, you'll need your main characters, your protagonist, at least one, frequently more because he needs someone to talk to. If it's an action show, you're going to need, well, you got to build a world in which this character exists. Again, if it's an action show, a superhero show, if you will, you'll need antagonists. You need villains to counter the heroes, and the heroes
I think you
stop.
always kind of need, you don't need villains, but you always need antagonists.
Well,
To one degree or another.
I suppose, but the kind of antagonist that you'll encounter with Spider-Man is different from the antagonist that you'll encounter with Curious George.
Yes.
Or Dragon Tales, or but there's your elements of drama. Protagonists, antagonists, dramatic stakes, a world in which to have them go at each other.
And dramatic stakes applies even if it's a comedy. Drama is a term meaning the story, the stuff that
Yeah, I was going to leap
happens.
in there that even on a straight-up comedy like Breadwinners, there are antagonists. There are creatures out there who
want something that the heroes want,
Sure.
or
The
stand in the
Smurf-
way of them accomplishing their goal.
Right, the Smurfs had Gargamel, among others, a character who, in his case, he really was a villain, but sometimes it's just, I want the same thing. I want to accomplish it before they accomplish it. And those are still antagonists. But you have to have something, the story isn't interesting if it's just a guy walking around as if he'd been stuck in traffic.
First note, executives come whenever they want.
Not going to touch
Okay.
that.
As you may have guessed, our 5th panelist has arrived. And Ted Biaselli, Ted, tell us a little about you.
Oh, I think about my journey. About the traffic on the 110. I've been an executive for 15 years. I was at Disney Channel for 9. I helped launch Disney XD. Then I launched the Discovery Hasbro joint venture, The Hub. Rest in peace. And new venture will be announced next week. So,
Awesome.
good
Excited
things.
about
Good
it.
things. Oh, I'm Ted. Hi, Ted Biaselli.
Okay, so I forgot where we were, but comedy or drama,
Protagonists, antagonists.
protagonist, antagonist. Okay, what else do we need in a presentation? What else goes into a Bible when you're developing a show?
I think you need clarity of idea. I think it's really easy, especially when you're world building, to come up with hundreds and hundreds of things and get excited about it. And what you need to know is, before you take it to Tatiana or Ted, you've got to give them the stuff they need to know. Nobody wants to hear what happens in the 7th season in a pitch. They want to hear who are your characters, what's funny about them, or what's exciting about them, why do we root for them. And that's got to be something you can boil down into 10 or 15 minutes. You don't want to be there
Yeah, tops.
talking their ear off.
Also, help if you can boil that into one or two sentences.
Yes, yeah.
And I love that you know 50,000 characters and how they all relate and all that stuff like that, but it tends to be a little overwhelming. And I love that you know all that, and if I ask you, how do these characters work with this, group of characters over there, that'll come.
Right.
So,
The last time we pitched to Ted halfway through the pitch said, "I so get this." And we were only halfway through the pitch. And we all looked at each other, my partner and the artist we teamed up with, and said, "No, that's all we need to say. Shut up."
yes.
We
Don't sell past the sale.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have that with my mother. She'll want me to do something, and I'll say, okay, I'll take care of that. And then she'll keep explaining why it's a good idea and why I should do it. Go, Mom, stop selling.
You're losing.
I've already said
Mom.
yes.
Those in the room.
Once you know you have the sale, know when to shut up. That's an important skill.
Yeah, I developed a show for, I was hired by a company, and they had a deal on a collectible card game, like Magic the Gathering, although it was not Magic the Gathering. But they wanted to do a TV show based on that. And so I had to work with the woman who had created this collectible card game, which she'd been working on, and it was on the market and been selling for quite a few years. And there were, like in Magic, hundreds of characters and locations and
I don't know
stuff.
what that's like.
And I kind of explained to her, like, yeah, well, we can get to all of those in the show eventually, but for the development, we need to sort of center on just a few, what the basic thing is, and that would be fine. And then the next meeting, it would be, why aren't these other 800 characters in the show? Well, we went over that, and she just kept not being able to get why all those hundreds of characters. And it's for the reason that other people have said. It gets too confusing at the beginning. You know it, and maybe those will all end up playing in the show. But at the beginning, it's about these three guys and these two bad guys, and this is what they're dealing with.
Yeah, I think related to that, I should underline the importance of the log line, because I don't know how many of you guys know what that is, but that's basically the focus of your series. So it really encapsulates what is the hook of this, what is most important about this show. Because often people that aren't used to trying to sell their projects, they will get too complex too quickly and start talking about all these extra characters or extra worlds or all this stuff. Obviously, your show is more complex than one sentence, but you need to be able to boil it down to one sentence to really focus it and let the person you're talking to know what is this show, what makes it different from other shows, what is it like, what ideally the tone should be kind of clear from the log line. A lot of work really goes into figuring out what is the focus of that show, because you need to know that again when you're.
Think of it, I don't know if anybody here is old enough to remember TV Guide, but how would TV Guide explain that?
Is it a book?
In that one, that one little sentence.
And that, in fact, is where that term log line comes from, because TV Guide was a particular publication, but they were called TV logs, actually radio logs first. And it was the line in the log that told the person who might tune in what this week's episode was about or what the movie was about. So that's your log line.
If Penguin's running for mayor, can Batman stop him?
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a sales tool more than anything else. And you have to look at what you're pouring your heart and soul into this. You're coming up with your characters and your worlds, and you've been living with them for forever. And you know the opus that's coming with these characters and all the wonderful things are coming. But you got to sell it. And that's the first thing you have to do is what's going to make this sexy? What's going to make it appealing? What's going to make it delicious? And look at it as a menu. A menu's got, the meat, the side dish, everything in there, but the way that they write it is so enticing. And it's the way they come into you and tell you the specials for today. And then when you get the meal, well then it's all that great complex flavor and all that stuff in there, and you want to spend time with it, and you want to savor it. But you got to get it in there in that first little bit, and you got to sell it, make it sexy. And I joke at panels like this before with Craig and these guys. I've heard your idea. I'm sorry. none of you in this room have an original idea. It's a sad reality that you don't. But what you do have is a point of view to tell me a story that I may have heard already, but tell me in a way that I've never heard it before. I call that the Moulin Rouge. Everybody's seen Moulin Rouge. Everybody's seen that story 1,000 times. It's, boy meets girl, girl dies of consumption. It happens every other day. But we've never seen it like that. We've never seen a story like that told with such visual flair, with such musical flair. And that's the point of difference. It's that person that's coming into this story. Because that's who we're going to work with. We're going to work with you. So what makes you the person that we're going to invest 26 episodes and a lot of money in? That's part of it.
Yeah. I used to teach writing for animation at the Art Institute of California, and I used to tell my students in a much more long-winded version than I'm going to tell you, that there are all these theories about there's only 7 different stories, there are only 12 different stories. I believe there's one story. Every story is cat goes up tree, cat gets stuck in tree, cat gets out of tree.
Thank God.
It's,
I was worried about that.
and that's
She
a
may come
boring,
out dead,
right,
but she
that's-
will come out.
That's a boring story to everyone but the cat. It's our job as writers, artists, creators to make it an interesting story. But it's all about there's this guy who's a cat or a Martian or a dog or a person who is living his life and something happens and there's a problem and he has to solve it. That's every story.
Yeah.
And it could be a romance, boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl. You can substitute all the genders throughout that. But that's the same story as cat goes up tree. That's the basic story. They're all the same story. It's how you make it interesting. And that's part of what we're doing. And it's an individual story or for an entire show. The same thing applies. How do you make that interesting?
The other thing I would...
How do you make that interesting?
Well, funny you should ask. We're 3 writers up here and 2 development executives. If you're a writer, I strongly suggest finding an artist who you click with to add some visual development to your pitch. You can go in and pitch with just yourself and your handwritten notes and your leave behind, which is a page or 2 of what you're doing. But if you find an artist who you have some sort of creative synergy with, then that's golden, and that really helps, at least from my point of view.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt for a second. We'll back up in a minute as to the textual material that goes into a presentation. But since you brought up artwork, how important, Tatiana and Ted, is it to you to see artwork with a pitch? How much does that add?
It's interesting because there's another, content at Cartoon Network is in 2 groups. It's action comedy and then comedy. Comedy, they are pretty much looking for an artist. So even if you have a great idea for them, they really are looking for an iconic style. And so it is everything for them. On our side, action comedy, we're actually looking more at the concept right now. So, it could come from a writer. It's possible, like if you are a well-established writer and there's no art and the concept is great, we would consider it. But I think this all maybe comes back to trust. It's like, if you haven't proven yourself and, you're coming in and say it is a great concept, it probably would help to have it developed out in some way, like maybe with art. And I would be mindful, though, of the art style of that network, because Cartoon Network tends to be a little bit more out of the box than Disney. So if you come to us with Disney art, then our first thought is like, they don't know our network. That's the first thing we see is like, they don't know what's on our network, or like, they don't know who they're selling to.
Know where you're pitching. My God,
Yeah.
that is so important. Know what's on the network. Know what they do. You don't come to Disney Channel, not Disney XD, Disney Channel with your hardcore action superhero show. That ain't gonna work. Actually, don't even go to Disney XD with that.
I was going to say.
But yes, know where you're pitching. Know and also know the people. Google's an amazing thing. Just put the name of the person. You know who you're going to go see. Put their name in. Find out what they've done. Find out what's on the network now. Talk about that. Yeah, don't come in there. I can't tell you how many times people came into my office and go, so we want to do a show for girls. Nobody did you miss the giant rainbow pony as you were walking in? And it's like, you know, just know that. Then, rather than say that, say, you know what, you guys are doing great things for girls animation. We want to do another girls animated series. Great, thank you. That's a different approach. That's
We
all.
know you get what we want to do with the girls show.
Yes, exactly. It's a compliment what Tatiana said. I'm a bit of a snob. If you bring me an artist, it better be freaking good. It better be
Yeah.
somebody awesome, somebody that I haven't seen before. It's going to speak a lot of your tastes. Some of these guys from New York pitched me a show that was truly different and unique and cool and wild and hilarious. And they brought in this artist with them that looked like it was from 1976. And it looked like a greeting card, you know, from 1970s. Like, you know, what's her name, Maxine, with her coffee mug. And I was like, this is so not your show. I'm like, you've actually done damage to this brilliant concept with this bad artwork. And I think that, you know, if you're going to bring art into it, make it complement the words. Figure out what the tone is, I think to Craig's point, figure out what the tone is. Come at it with a point of view that the art matches it so it feels balanced. And if you're not sure, less is more.
Yeah. And the other thing
No art
is,
is better than bad art.
No art
Yes,
is much
yes,
better than bad art.
exactly. Yes.
Just like conversely, if you're a really great artist and you have a fantastic thing, and you can't write, don't write. Show me storyboards that pitch me out your concept. I'll find a writer that will work with you.
But who thinks they can't write?
You know?
It's pretty easy.
Everybody thinks they can write.
It's true.
This
I'll
is
tell
easy.
them.
Yeah, exactly. Going from one to Josh, yeah.
right. I mean, the first show I developed and pitched and sold was a show called Pocket Dragon Adventures we did about 15 years ago. And fortunately, we sold it. We did 104 episodes, and we played in all over the U.S. and the world. So that was a very happy experience. But when the company that bought it, which was the second company we took it to, they looked at it and said, well, we love this artwork, but we have to read it and make sure we love the show. And it's the artwork, I think, can charm or intrigue people, but it really will come down to the idea. Whether it's expressed as a storyboard or as written text, which we will now talk about, they both have to be good, they both have to be complementary, and they both have to excite the buyer.
The show that Bob mentioned earlier when he came in, him and Bill came in today, they pitched me the show, and it was based on an artist, this guy, John Loder, who is a brilliant artist, and I love him. Genius. He's really talented. And he had these two iconic characters, right? And they appeared on apparel, he had a whole line of stuff with them, and they were just very simple and iconic. And what Bill and Bob did is they came in and they brought a universe around that artwork in a tone that matched the artwork style. So it really was the meeting of minds where, you know, if these guys came in with that show without the artwork, it would have been cute, it would have been fun. I would have considered it. The idea of having
I would just interrupt. I think you would only consider that because you work.
because I've known you guys, exactly. I know what they would be able to bring to that story. But seeing John's artwork, knowing John, knowing Bill and Bob, it was like, and then the network collapsed before I was able to make a deal.
Oh.
We've killed the network.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of you.
Good job, Bob.
And in fact, that's exactly
Bob, turn around and pitch me.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
Well, no, but seriously, this gets back to the point Ted was making. Know the network. The show we pitched to Ted would not work on Cartoon Network in a million years.
Yeah.
And so we never even bothered taking it to Cartoon Network.
Well, and related to that, remember that in a sense, like, this is not about how good your project is. I mean, that does figure into it, but it really is like what they need right now. So it's not only like what network, it's like sometimes there's specific needs. Like, so you might have a great show about bears, and we just heard from, you know, the head of content, like, absolutely no bears. We're sick of bears, no more.
And she's
That
not
happens
being
all the
funny
time, by
when
the
she
way.
says bears. That's the kind of decisions they make. It literally is things
Oh,
like,
That kind of specificity.
Well, it could be, we might already have 5 things in development with bears, so you don't want to be the 6th thing in development with bears.
In 2011, if I had one pitch with a rabbit, I had 9. And I'm like, if I see one more damn rabbit.
We sold a movie to Nickelodeon based on this. I mean, I'd like to think it was a good pitch. But we went in, we pitched it. It was a story about a dog, a boy and a dog. And then the executive said, I like this, I'm going to think about it. And then he went into a meeting with his boss who said, we need a movie about a boy and a dog. And he said, it's fantastic, I have one. And we got a deal off of that. It's kismet sometimes.
Yeah.
And if he had gone into that meeting and his boss had said, I hate dogs, that pitch would have been dead. At least at
Joe Ruby, you would have made a sale with a dog.
Do you guys know the comic Mr. Toast? Have you ever heard of Mr. Toast? It's an indie comic book. It's adorable. It's super cute. And when I was at Playhouse Disney, now Disney Junior, I was in love with this comic. I was like, this could be something huge. And the executive that I was working with at the time, she was like, I don't like talking food. And I'm like, this comic is really big underground. It could be, we could make that cool preschool show that everybody wants. And she's like, I don't like talking food. And it was that. That was it. It was done.
Yeah.
And she had a bad experience with her food.
I guess one day she woke up and her toast told her to go.
I understand her point of view.
And the opposite experience of Bob's was, I was hired by a record company. They had a girl band. They wanted to do an animated series about the girl band. They were willing to pay for the series if they could get it on the air. So I developed a show for them, and I said, but you know, at the moment, they're like, no girl shows on the air, so it will be a hard sell. And they're like, that's okay, we want to try it. It promotes their record label.
Belinda Carlisle's drug record was a problem too.
Yeah. So we developed a show. We set up a bunch of meetings around LA at all the studios. Every single company had a girl music show in development already. The only one that actually ended up on the air was Puffy.
Puffy. Yeah.
But every production company and network had a girl band show on the air, but there were no girl shows on the air at all anywhere at that time. So it's like, okay, our timing was bad on this. 3 months earlier, we would have been when they were looking for girl band shows.
And that's the frustrating thing about it. It's out of your control. You just have to find an idea you believe in, pour your heart and soul to it, hope your timing's right, hope you find somebody who thinks it's genius like you do.
And that's
on the shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, Phineas and Ferb sat on the shelf for what?
10 years?
10 years,
Yeah.
11 years.
Yeah. And I bought something recently that I'm pretty sure this guy had for at least 5 or 6 years, and it just happened to be the right time.
Never mentioned that, by the way.
Yeah.
They've been doing that. We're like, oh,
No, you just did this.
It's been for 10 years, and they were like, oh, great. We're like, no, you're the geniuses who saw it.
That's your story.
But related to what Bob said, like, we want you to really care about this project. If I get the sense that you're just trying to sell something, it typically is not. I mean, really that tends to go with like not good projects anyway, or kind of half-baked projects. So it really matters that you're invested in this and that you really care about this project. And don't try to make it, don't try to make it something that it isn't just to sell it.
Yes.
Like, just be true to what it is. And it just may or may not be the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
I love a flexible producer. Nothing is better to me than a producer who says, look, here's what I've blocked out. I think that this makes sense to me. I'm open to your suggestions, but here's what I think that the show is about, and I don't want to change what the show is about. And that's so important, because if you're like, no, make it a girl, no, sure, you want to set it underwater, great, let's set it under. That's the last thing I want. Because if you don't care what your show's about, then what the hell should I?
Right.
And
You have to decide what the important elements are to you about
Yes.
the
Right.
show.
And that's the tricky thing about this process
Yeah.
is knowing what you want to plant your flag on and say, no, this is the show, it can't change.
Yep.
And what's the window dressing on it that,
That you
is
can't.
it a blue shirt, you want a red shirt? I don't care, sure, you can have a red shirt.
Yeah. Those are the silly little things, and those are the things that lesser executives, unlike Tatiana and myself, like to put their stamp on. It's like, see that? I made that blue. That's not a note.
Okay, well, let's back up to the content of your pitch besides artwork. When I do a development, typically I'll put in a piece about the world. what is this show about? And then there's a section about the characters, because everything is about the characters. It isn't about the situation. And then there'll be some sample stories, a paragraph to a page each, to establish not only are these cool, interesting characters, but one of the things about television is it isn't a movie, it isn't one idea, it has to sustain. It has to have 26 ideas, 48 ideas, 100 ideas. You have to be able to do lots and lots and lots of different stories about these characters. So for me, it's you put in half a dozen different types of stories about these characters.
That's true.
What do you guys like to see, both when you're doing developments and when you are being pitched developments? What else do you want to see? What don't you care about? How do you envision it? And how long should a development, a Bible, be?
You know, look, there's no perfect answer, because I've seen things come in on a page that I'm like, I get this. And I've seen things that come in like this thick, and I look at it and I'm like, I'm never going to read that. And it's true. We won't read that. What we'll read is something that has a balance between art and text. You know, if there's too much art and no text at all, then it feels like it's thin. Unless you're an artist that's coming in and you're conveying your ideas through pictures. But if it's something from a writer and you have art and it's just all slick and there's nothing about the characters or nothing about the story, it feels, tipsy. It's a good balance. I think that, Craig nailed it. Everything that you need to do. Give me a sentence or two about what it is that we're going to see. It's Abe Lincoln. Tell me what I'm going to see. Tell me what I'm seeing, and then tell me what I just saw. It's give me that in a very clear, unique, standing out situation. Again, don't go in there trying to convince me that this is the most original idea in the world. Try to convince me that these characters are in this situation for a reason and why I want to follow them. That's the most important thing. Why I want to follow these characters through a situation that I've probably seen 1,000 times.
Yeah, and you want to get to the point that I think it was Ted or Bob mentioned earlier, where Ted was like, I get this show. You basically want to be able to get to the point where we're like, okay, this is what this show is. It may not be what we need right now, but the thing is, it needs to be clear. It's like you need to present enough to make it clear what this show is, what the focus of the show is, and what the story engine is. You could say basically what's going to generate all these stories, like for seasons and seasons.
Here's what I don't like: props. Please do not bring props. Worst pitch ever, and I'm sorry if you're in the room.
I can't say it enough. I apologize.
So it was a show. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, but it was a show about an injured animal, and the animal was called Lucky, and Lucky had no legs, and it was.
I get it. I want it.
Okay, it was a lucky cat, and this person brought in 17 of those cats. You know the cats with that you see in like the stores downtown.
Oh yeah,
those
the
cats.
Maneki Nekos.
Yeah, 17 of them, all different styles, and brought them all into the room. And I'm sitting there, and I walk into the pitch, and all these things are doing this. I was a little scared. And then after I see the artwork of Cat with No Legs in wheelchair called Lucky, I'm treated.
Was he blind in one eye?
There was a girl who was blind. She had one eye. And I was treated to the theme song on a Casio. Lucky cat, he's a lucky. And I literally was kicking my boss under the table. I was kicking him. He was bleeding by the end of this. That is the worst. I can't handle that. Giant constructs of backgrounds, things like that. Things that are cumbersome for you make me uncomfortable to watch you setting it up.
People in costumes.
Oh my God! Please don't come in a costume. They did. Oh God! There was
A clown showed up at Nickelodeon a couple weeks ago. A literal clown, and we
Frightened everybody away.
Right, terrified everyone.
I was pitched a show about a family, like a modern Partridge family, and they all came in matching outfits, and they were all on something. They were so freaking happy, and everything was like, it was terrifying. It's just be yourself. Don't put on the artifice. Don't feel like you have to, build a set. I I don't need, you know, a multi-plane of existence that I'm looking through, you know. It just...
Yeah, I think this is like this kind of mistaken Hollywood lore of like you need to sell it that way or have all these bells and whistles, when the fact is like we see right through that immediately, and we're trying to see what the show is beyond like your tap dance or whatever you're doing. So related to that, you don't even have to be, in my opinion, I don't know,
In the
you
room.
know, yeah.
Saw you on Skype.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, hopefully you're good in the room or able to, you know, communicate your idea. But the fact is, you could actually be somebody who's a little bit introvert. A lot of animators are introverted. A lot of them aren't great speakers, but we just need to communicate enough for us to be able to see this show. So again, don't think you need to be like the best salesman in the world, because we are looking at the product.
A lot of people think you need to memorize your pitch, and you need to know your pitch, absolutely. But we always bring notes with us just in case there's a moment we blank. And I know there's some people who will tell you absolutely don't bring notes. I would say as long as you have clearly organized notes that you can read quickly. You don't want to do the thing where you're like, I forgot where I was, give me a moment. You don't want to do that, but if you can, if the president
oh
needs
yeah,
a-
I forgot to tell you.
If the president can use a teleprompter, you can certainly have it.
Yeah, or it's like, you know, you've gotten me through the entire thing. Oh, wait. Okay, remember when I said this? Okay, so there's three other characters that have... Here's another thing. If you've come prepared with a leave behind, don't give it to me in the beginning. Because guess what I'm going to do?
You're going to read
I'm
it.
going to look at it.
I've seen you do it, you bastard.
Don't give me that. And if you do give it to me at the beginning, don't read exactly what's on it. Because it's not a book and record, people. I don't want to sit there and read along with a read along. I can do this.
Yeah, they can read it. They want you to
I
tell
want
it.
you to tell
Yeah.
me.
Is it worth talking about, like, say you are stunningly lucky enough to actually sell a pitch in a room, what happens next?
You panic.
7 months of business affairs.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, from a creator's standpoint,
You panic. No,
yes, you do.
and you go out to dinner. You go out to dinner, have a nice drink. Yeah, where should we start with
Yeah,
that?
do you want to start from the creator's
Well,
perspective?
that could be an entire another panel. So
Yes.
You've sold your pitch.
we will
Now
try to address that a little bit, but first I want to see if there are questions on the main topic that people in the audience have that we might not have addressed.
Come
Yes.
up to the mic.
Yeah, come up to the mic, please.
Sure, Mike. You were talking about no props, no costumes. So what does work during the pitch? What would I bring?
You.
Yes.
That's it.
You being the best, knowing your show, being connected to your project, and telling me why it's the thing that I need right now.
Sell your passion,
Yep.
not
Yeah.
the price.
Not a bunch of
Okay,
gimmicks.
one other thing not to do, don't explain why it'll sell a lot of toys.
Yeah,
Unless
they
you go into
ask.
Hasbro.
Yeah.
Then tell them how it's going to sell a lot of toys. Because that's all they care about.
A second question too, real quick. I'm a producer. I've done live action, but I'm looking into getting into animated series and such. I don't know where to find an animator, an artist.
DeviantArt. Just seriously, go to DeviantArt, scroll through, find people that you like, click on that. There's a couple of great websites, Cartoon Brew, go there. They'll link to a bunch of blogs. They'll showcase great blogs of artists that are working in the business now. And
There's
then
Artist Alley.
Yeah, I mean,
Artist
it's
Alley downstairs. That's where I'm headed now.
I have an area called Artist Alley where there are dozens of artists, some of whom may be in the room right now.
Next month in Burbank at the Marriott is CTN, which is the Creative
Oh,
Talent
right,
Network.
right.
It is gold mine, my
Yeah.
friends. It is absolutely
Yeah,
gold
and
mine.
just, go up, look at the art that they have on their tables and
If
talk to them.
If it clicks with you, we might even look at the shows that you love,
Yeah.
that you think will be appropriate, and look at the storyboard artists who are capable at least of drawing, in that style, if not the art directors. You find an art director that you love, generally the person who came up with the signature look of the show, and go, shit, I want to work with that
Yeah,
person.
I mean, I've gone and found people to be character designers on projects in Artist Alley at convention. I haven't actually found anyone particularly at this weekend show, but I haven't actually had time to look around here. But I've found them at other conventions, and we just have a conversation, and then it's like, okay, send me some samples, I talk to them, you know, and it builds from there. You're not gonna hire someone at their table, but at least you can see who you like and start talking to them.
Okay.
And you can look at art schools too. I mean, Cal Arts is so close, and they have a great animation program, and those students are really hungry to start working. So
They do shows where they showcase all the things, the Red Cat shows, and you go and just pay attention to all those up and coming artists. That's what we do.
yeah.
That's what we do.
Okay.
And I like to challenge my old boss and find new artists before he does.
Nice.
It's just fun.
Thank you.
Okay, they've signaled me that we're low on time, so if people have questions, please go up to the mic and we'll try to answer them.
Hi, everybody. Once we have our idea down, our pitch is ready, how do we get this meeting with you guys? We pitched you first.
Oh, that you can't do.
Having an agent helps.
Or at least a lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
Well, no, we're still answering his
Yeah,
questions.
sorry.
Okay, we'll get to you.
Lawyers or agents actually should be your first stop, because they're gonna open the doors for you.
There's a legal reason that very frequently they won't hear a pitch, which is that, without a legal representation, which is you could come in with an idea, they might have two things in development that are similar enough that when they come out with it and you see the show and you realize they rejected your pitch and you go, they stole my idea, they want to avoid that.
And if you're starting out and you're having trouble getting an agent, or like you don't know, how to begin, you can always try to get your work out some way or other. Like I think Ted would agree, like there's nothing you want more than to discover somebody, basically. And if your thing is really good and, it's out there, people will pay attention. The hardest thing of this whole project is having like a genius idea, basically. Or not just the idea, but basically being a genius and being able to deliver
Believe
on
me,
this
it's
great
rough
show.
being a genius.
And, if you're working hard and, your stuff is interesting to other people, people will notice it online, and it will eventually filter up to people.
The show I'm currently working on, Breadwinners, they pitched it to Nickelodeon, they pitched it to Disney, they pitched it to the Nickelodeon Shorts program. It was rejected by all these places. So they said, well, let's just make a short and put it online. They threw it up on YouTube, and suddenly there was a bidding war for it. And now it's a show on Nickelodeon. We're halfway through our second season.
Online, key element.
And the beautiful thing about that, no offense to you guys, but it cuts a huge part of the development process.
Yeah.
It's true. It's there, and they can say, these are the characters, this is what they look like, this is their world. And when it's there, animated and working, suddenly a whole bunch of the discussion falls by the wayside, because it's there and you don't have to explain it and say,
They
"They're
just
us," and
throw money at you.
You've got a following already. Instant, done.
And it's, that's the way the business has changed. in the
Francis
past.
Hybert knows that better than anybody else.
Okay, next question.
Hi there. You guys were talking about oh, I don't want to do dogs because I hate dogs, and like blue shirt and red shirt. So I'm wondering, how much does demographics and stuff like that play into a pitch? Because some shows even get canceled because they're like, oh, too many girls are watching this, too many guys are watching this, et cetera, et cetera.
Huge. It's all about what the network's looking for at the moment. Disney Channel leads with girls, but they want more boys, so they try to throw shows on there that are going to attract more boys. Disney XD is a network that they intended to get more boys. Guess what? It gets a lot of girls, so they want to make sure that the balance is out. Cartoon Network, if I'm speaking for you, is a boy-driven network. I mean, that is for the boys. Nickelodeon, they want to be gender neutrality. They want to make sure that boys and girls are completely served equally. The Hub, we were very proud to serve girls. We loved having girls come to our network watching animation. So it's very much about know the demographic that you're pitching to, and know what you think is going to appeal.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I was wondering, what would you recommend to dress for a pitch? Like, should you be super formal, or is it maybe a little bit?
Robes. Yeah, I want robes.
Hogwarts robes.
Be
Yeah.
comfortable,
Yes.
don't be, well, I don't know.
Don't be Sean Young. Don't show up in a Catwoman costume and say that you should be Catwoman. But if you
They're just going, who's Sean?
yeah, I know who's Sean Young. Dating myself. I don't know who she is either. I
just came
I mean, dress comfortably. You're dressing to show them who you are.
Okay.
So if who you are is wearing Fluttershy, you know, if
Yeah.
that's you, then be you, you know.
Okay.
But you don't have to come across as a device or as a prop. You're not a prop, but just reflect who you are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, if there's more time.
Yep.
Talking about when it comes to the sort of elevator pitch or the first line you want in the document, and especially because so many TV series these days are more standalone episodes than an overarching like continuation plot. What do you want to see first in a pitch document? Do you want to go like characters and then a sort of plot? What sort of loses your attention quicker in a pitch document that way?
I mean, I think off the top of my head, I feel like most, if you have like a one page, it's typically, and Ted, you know, like obviously interrupt if you feel like it's different, but it's typically like the log line. There's a little bit more about the concept then, or like the series itself, maybe a paragraph or two, then the main characters. And really just focus on the main ones there. Then there could be some stuff after about like location or whatever, but the most important is that first half page really, which is like the log line, and then a little bit more about the series, like what is the focus of the show. Then obviously, again, like the main character we'll want to read about and that, but we don't want to read about like the most, you know, the character that's going to show up in 3 episodes.
No. I'll give you an example with a point of reference that we know. My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. 6 little girls learn about being different and working together because friendship truly unites everyone. That's a great log line. That's what that show is about. Then you get into the part where, in a world that is only ruled by mythical creatures, 6 little girls who happen to be ponies find that their differences actually can come together and bring them all together. We meet Rainbow Dash, we meet Fluttershy, and then you start bringing out the 6 characters. You don't have to get into the big battle of Luna and Celestia, all that. That's all mythology. That's all stuff that can come. But what this show is about, it's Sex in the City with ponies. It's about how different girls talk to each other. I mean, that's really what it is. It's about how different girls relate to each other, and the fact that the jock can be friends with the brain can be friends with the fashionista. That's what the show is about. It just so happens to be set in a world of ponies and alicorns and all Discord.
And there's less talk about shoes.
That's like
hooves.
All right. And considering you want to know how the creators' personality, like what they really love about the show, are you looking for anything in the pitch document that's sort of like a bit about the creators or what they're interested in, how they're making this?
Bob, no. You, yes. I mean, at the very end, talk about who you are. Where you went to school, what it is that you love, and why this show matters to you. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be anything. But they always say, write what you know. And the most honest and best things usually come from that. Chris Savino is one of the most talented people I know, and he's worked on so many other great shows, but he's never made his show. He was at an overall with Disney. They let him go. He went to Nickelodeon. They gave him some love, and they said, Chris, what kind of show do you want to make? And he's like, I don't know. And he pitched this show that was so close to his heart, but it wasn't him. It wasn't what he knew. And they said, Chris, you're from a large family. Why don't you just write a new Brady Bunch about a kid in a large family? And that's what he knows. And Loud Family is going to be, Loud House is going to be one of the funniest shows. It's going to be amazing. It's the best Disney Channel show, not on Disney Channel. And it's because it's what he knows. It's what he's connected to. It's his experiences. It's all that stuff that's come to life in a way that's hyper-realistic and hyper-stylized, but it's still connected to truth. Same thing with Alex Hirsch. Gravity Falls. It is based on him and his sister when they would go and spend weekends with their uncle or summers with their uncle. I mean, there's an essence of truth to all of that stuff. Even all the fantastical elements layered onto that. That was the stuff that they as kids would make up, but they still had an element that they were connected to. And those are the things that I think make a show something special.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Now you've heard Bob's feelings. You don't want to know about him.
He knows about it.
I know.
He's known me for years.
I can only say poor Pendleton Ward.
Okay. Well, yeah, except they came in several minutes ago and said 1 minute.
Are we
so-
okay?
Yeah.
Mike?
I was just asking about business cards or anything like that.
You
You know,
should have
contact information.
Yes, you should have them, I don't.
Doesn't hurt.
Quick question, if you already have a comic and you're looking just to animate it on your own, what are the costs and how do you go about doing it?
You know, that becomes a very complicated question. What are the costs? Are you doing it yourself? It costs you nothing. Are you hiring animators? Are you hiring voice actors? Do you have to buy the software? You know, and some software is easier to use, like Flash, than Maya. You know, so that isn't it's $12 a foot. It's a very complicated question.
I recommend Toon Boom. If you're looking at software, use Toon Boom. It's a lot of fun, it's reasonable, and it's super intuitive.